A reasonable assurance of safety is defined in 21 CFR 860.7D1. There is reasonable assurance that a device is safe when it can be determined based on valid scientific evidence that the probable benefits to health from use of the device for its intended uses and conditions of use, when accompanied by adequate directions and warnings against unsafe use, outweigh any probable risks. The valid scientific evidence used to determine the safety and effectiveness of the device shall adequately demonstrate the absence of unreasonable risk of illness or injury associated with the use of the device for its intended uses and conditions of use. The two key points I would like to make here are that when using the device properly, the probable benefits to health should outweigh any probable risks, and that there should be an absence of unreasonable risk of illness or injury.
More rare and severe adverse events were also reported in these studies. 2 cases of new onset epileptic seizure and 1 death.
Potential risk of seizure, just take that one off the list. It hasn't happened in 31 years.
FDA has identified several potential risks of CES. Potential risk of seizure,
potential risk of seizure. I've not seen any of that.
I don't think the risk of seizures is real.
Dr. Min, you mentioned under the risks that there was a death and 2 seizures. And our material discusses that there was a death 3 months after CES treatment, but there's no mention of seizures. I was wondering if you could elaborate on that.
The seizures occurred in a paper by Philip, and I can tell you that this was a study of psychiatric inpatients with major depressive disorder, and in this study, 2 patients had new onset epileptic seizures during a 5-day washout period that occurred prior to CES treatment. So this is a case where it's like the seizures are likely not attributed to the CES device, but we reported it here simply because we were reporting all of the adverse events that occurred in the studies.
My question is this for the panel. The devices have been used for approximately 30 years. There were, for instance, over 8.5 million treatments administered between 2007 and 2011. They're also used worldwide, even without a prescription. Over that immense period of time, if there was truly a safety issue, isn't it likely that that would be very obvious and we wouldn't have to concern ourselves with potential issues or problems?
The list of potential adverse events, is this a complete and accurate list? And I don't think it's accurate based on the only 2 seizures that were described happened before the treatment actually was used.
So first, let me apologize for the inflammatory nature of this question, and I'll address it to any of you. Can you name me, honestly, any currently available device or product in the United States that would stand up to the rigors that you've just listed for the device we're talking about today? I can't think of any.
Yes.
Name it.
This is not the appropriate place or forum to do so, as we can't compare.
Yes, Dave Miller. Also, I'd like to point out too that even though the best case is this fantastic clinical study, the CFR does allow us to look at reports of significant human experience. And in our documents, we have pages of significant human experience, including generals, captains, corporals, I don't remember all the ranks, saying how the military is using this on the battlefield, in the hospitals there, as well as when they get back. That I also think speaks reams of efficacy data showing a good effect. And I agree with everyone here saying there is no safety concern. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it sort of underlies the risks of relying too much on testimonials because, during the break, I went and talked to several colonels in the active Army, and they told me, and I told them what had been explained, and even the people that were said to have said those things. And I got back, a colleague at Walter Reed who said, I checked with people in the outpatient psychiatric clinics. This is rarely being used. I wasn't able to get a hold of Jim Kelly at NICO. He hasn't responded yet. I asked about in-theater use, and he asked as many psychiatrists as he could get a hold of in the last couple of hours, and he said he's not aware of anybody who is using it now. So maybe there are other groups of people using it, but I don't think we can put too much stock in testimonials.
He had emailed or talked to colleagues in the armed forces, and he got some information back but couldn't get quickly enough. There is a Colonel Pastel here from the armed forces who is willing to discuss what the experience of the military is as a follow-up to Dr. Stein's earlier comment. So I'm just wondering if Colonel Pastel could make a comment regarding the military's experience per what Dr. Stein had talked about earlier.
I think at this point, we're not any longer open to public comment. So let's hold off on that.